Ava knew something was wrong the moment her mother went quiet. Not the usual irritated silence she gave when Ava forgot to take out the trash or stayed up late watching shows with the volume too loud. This silence was different, cold, final. Like something had just broken between them, quietly but for good. It started when the doctor left the hospital room. He had been kind enough. A middle-aged man with tired eyes and a soft tone, but his words hit like a bat to the chest. "You're approximately 8 weeks pregnant," he said, flipping the chart shut with a sound that echoed too loudly in the sterile room. "We'll need to run more tests, but everything looks healthy so far." Healthy. Ava stared at the dull, white ceiling tiles, as if they might open up and swallow her whole. She was 16. She wasn't even legally allowed to vote or rent a car, but now she was going to be a mother. Diane, her mother, sat across from her in the visitor chair, legs crossed and hands clasped tightly in her lap. She hadn't moved a muscle since the doctor left. Her jaw was tight, her eyes fixed ahead, and her lips, those perfectly painted red lips, hadn't parted once. Ava's heart raced. She wanted her to say something, anything. "Mom," she whispered. Still nothing. She tried again, voice shaking. "Please, can you just say something?" That's when Diane stood up. Her movements were slow, robotic, like her body was on autopilot. She adjusted her handbag over her shoulder and looked at her daughter with a gaze Ava didn't recognize. It wasn't angry. It wasn't even sad. It was empty. "You've made your choice," Diane said at last, her voice low but cutting. "Now live with it." Ava's stomach dropped. "What?" she asked, confused. "What does that mean?" "It means I'm done. Done enabling you. Done sacrificing everything for a daughter who doesn't listen. Done cleaning up after your mistakes." Ava sat up straighter, panic rising, in her throat like bile. "Mom, I didn't plan this. I thought you'd be mad, but not. I gave you everything," Diane snapped, voice rising as she stepped toward the door. "I gave you structure, a roof, rules, and you repaid me with this, getting knocked up by some loser who probably won't even answer your texts now?" Ava felt tears burn her eyes, but she refused to cry. Not yet, not in front of her. "Please, don't leave me here," she said, her voice barely audible. Diane looked her daughter over one last time, not with love, not even with pity, but with disdain. "You made a bed," she said. "Now lie in it." And just like that, she was gone. The door clicked shut behind her, and for a long moment, Ava couldn't move. Her hands were clenched in her lap, cold and shaking, while her whole body buzzed with shock. The room was so quiet now that even the sound of her own breathing felt too loud. The hallway outside buzzed with normal hospital life, beeping machines, rolling carts, the low murmur of nurses. But inside her room, it felt like time had stopped. Ava didn't cry right away. She just sat there staring at the floor like it might give her answers. She tried to replay the moment, hoping maybe she'd misunderstood her mother. Maybe Diane just needed space. Maybe she'd gone for coffee and would come back with a lecture, and a scowl and a plan. But deep down, Ava knew that was it. Diane had walked out and she wasn't coming back. After 20 minutes, or maybe it was an hour, a soft knock came at the door. A nurse peeked in. She was maybe in her late 40s with short curly hair and kind, worried eyes. "Hey, sweetheart," she said, stepping in slowly. "You're—" "Mom, step out for a minute?" Ava stared at her. She wanted to lie, wanted to say yes, that her mom just went to get lunch or talk to the doctor or use the bathroom. But instead, she whispered, "She left." The nurse frowned. "You mean—" "She left the hospital." "She left me," Ava said flatly. "She's not coming back." There was a pause, a long one. The nurse's face shifted from confusion to understanding, and then to something close to heartbreak. "I'm so sorry, honey," she said, gently sitting on the edge of the bed. "I'm Janet. Do you have anyone we can call, another family member?" Ava shook her head. "It's just us. Was just us. Friends. No one that'd pick up." Janet looked around the room like she was searching for something to say, something that would make this not as bad as it was. But what do you say to a 16-year-old girl who's just been abandoned? "I'll be right back," she said at last, patting Ava's hand. "Don't move. We're going to figure something out, okay?" Ava nodded, but her eyes stayed fixed on the window. The rain was still falling heavier now. She watched the drops race each other down the glass. Everything hurt. Her head, her stomach, her chest. But most of all, it was the silence that hurt. The silence where her mother's voice used to be. The silence that answered every question Ava hadn't even had time to ask yet. She reached slowly for her phone, tucked inside her bag at the edge of the bed. Dozens of unread messages, mostly school group chats and one from her best friend, asking if she was still grounded, but none from him. Of course not. No one knew, no one cared, no one was coming. Ava lowered the phone and stared at her lap. Her fingers trembled as they rested on her belly. She didn't even know if she wanted to keep it. She hadn't gotten that far yet. All she knew was that her mother had walked out the moment she heard the word pregnant. Like the child growing inside her was poison. But that wasn't the baby's fault. And maybe, just maybe, it wasn't even hers. Janet came back 20 minutes later with a paper cup of cocoa, 2 packets of saltine crackers, and the kind of soft smile people give you when they don't know what else to do. "I talked to my supervisor," she said, placing the tray on Ava's table. "We're going to get you someone to speak with, a hospital social worker. She's good. You'll like her." Ava nodded, though her stomach turned at the idea of talking to someone else. Another stranger asking questions, another adult who'd look at her like a problem to be solved. Still, she took the cocoa with both hands. It was warm. That mattered. Janet stayed with her for a while, chatting about nothing important. Her son's first year in college, how awful the cafeteria food was. A ridiculous story about a patient who got caught trying to sneak out just to smoke, and Ava listened because listening was easier than thinking. But every few minutes her eyes would dart to the door, still half hoping it might open, that her mother would change her mind and walk back in. But it stayed closed. Eventually, a new woman appeared. She looked serious, dressed in business casual and holding a clipboard. Her name was Rachel, and she introduced herself as a social worker for Child Protective Services. Just hearing the word protective made Ava's chest tighten. Rachel was polite but efficient. She didn't waste time sugarcoating anything. "So, Ava," she said, sitting in the chair Diane had left vacant, "the hospital called us when your mother left. Because you're a minor, that qualifies as abandonment. Legally, we can't release you without determining where you'll go next." Ava blinked at her. "Go where?" Rachel exhaled through her nose, carefully setting the clipboard on her lap. "Foster care. A temporary placement at first until we can either locate your mother or find a more permanent solution." Ava's heart dropped to her knees. No, she's just mad," she said quickly. "She'll come back. She just needs to calm down. She gets like this. She's probably already in the parking lot, I swear." Rachel didn't flinch. "We checked, Ava. She's not here. Her phone's off. We've left messages. She hasn't responded." Ava shook her head, biting her lip so hard it nearly bled. "She wouldn't just leave me. Not like this, not when I'm pregnant." Rachel's voice was calm, too calm. "I know this is a lot, but right now we have to make sure you're safe. That's our job." Ava wanted to scream. She wanted to rip the IV out of her arm and run into the street. Her life had crumbled in a matter of hours. She didn't know how to fix it, didn't even know where to begin. "So what, you're going to put me in some stranger's house?" she snapped. "What if they're worse? What if they don't want a pregnant girl in their home?" Rachel's eyes softened a little. "That's why we're going to be very careful with where we place you. We'll try to find someone with experience. But I won't lie to you. Foster care is unpredictable. Not every home is perfect." Ava hated her for saying that, for being honest. She wanted someone to lie to her, tell her everything was going to be okay, even if it wasn't. That night, she slept in the hospital room with the door cracked open. Janet brought her a blanket from the staff lounge, something soft and lavender-colored that smelled faintly of bleach. The cocoa was long cold by then. She didn't eat the crackers. She lay curled up in bed, hands wrapped around her stomach like a barrier. She wasn't thinking about the baby anymore. She was thinking about the hallway, about the echo of her mother's footsteps walking away. the way she hadn't even looked back. The next morning, Rachel returned with a decision. Ava would be placed temporarily with a woman named Linda, a licensed foster parent who had taken in teens before, a few pregnant girls too. Rachel tried to sound positive, but Ava could see the fatigue in her eyes. She'd probably done this 100 times, maybe more. They gave Ava an hour to pack her things. A nurse handed her a plastic bag of her belongings, phone, wallet, charger, and the hoodie she had worn into the ER the night before. No suitcase, no goodbye note, no keepsakes from home. Because home didn't exist anymore. Linda picked her up around noon in a rusty red minivan that smelled like peppermint gum and stale coffee. She was in her 50s, soft-faced with faded, red curls and a floral scarf. She greeted Ava with a warm smile and a too cheerful, "Hey there, sweetie." Ava wanted to disappear. The drive was quiet. Linda tried small talk, but Ava barely replied. Her eyes stayed locked on the window, watching neighborhoods roll by. Kids on bikes, moms pushing strollers, normal people living normal lives. She didn't belong to that world anymore. Linda's house was modest, a small white bungalow with chipped paint and a front porch full of potted plants. Inside it was warm and smelled like cinnamon. There were picture frames on the walls, most of them filled with photos of smiling children who probably weren't hers. "Bedrooms this way," Linda said, leading her down a short hallway. The room was plain but clean. A twin bed with a yellow comforter, a dresser, a mirror, nothing personal, just enough to exist in. "You can take a shower if you like. There's clean towels in the closet," Linda offered. Ava nodded, dropping her bag on the bed. Linda hesitated at the door. "I know this must be scary, but you're safe here. And you're not the first girl who's gone through something like this, all right?" Ava turned away, not trusting herself to respond. Once, alone, she locked the door and sat on the edge of the bed. The room was too quiet, too neat, like a waiting room for a life she wasn't ready to live. She looked down at her stomach again, still flat, still easy to pretend it wasn't real. But it was real. Her mother was gone. Her old life was gone. And for the first time since the hospital, Ava finally cried. Not a few soft tears, but full body, shaking sobs that wouldn't stop. She cried until her throat was raw and her chest ached, until she fell asleep, still clutching her hoodie, like it might somehow take her back to a home that had already moved on without her. Ava didn't speak much the first few days at Linda's. She went through the motions, showered, ate a little, pretended to sleep when Linda peeked in at night, but inside, she felt hollow. Like her body was moving, but her mind was somewhere else entirely. The house was quiet most of the time. Linda worked from home as an online tutor and gave Ava her space, though she did try every morning to connect, to offer some piece of comfort. She left notes by the cereal bowl. "Don't forget, you matter. You're stronger than you feel today." Little things written in curly handwriting that Ava couldn't bring herself to throw away. But none of it filled the gap Diane had left behind. That kind of hurt didn't come with a remedy. There were no band-aids for that kind of wound. By the end of the week, Ava had no choice but to go back to school. She hadn't wanted to. Begged Rachel to give her more time. But the law didn't wait for grief and she was still legally enrolled. Besides, if she stayed out too long, people would start asking questions. Linda drove her Monday morning, the van humming softly along the quiet roads as dawn broke. Ava stared out the window again, this time dressed in the same oversized hoodie she'd practically lived in since the hospital. It still smelled faintly of her old room, of home. "You don't have to tell anyone anything," Linda said gently. "It's your story. You tell it how you want, when you're ready." Ava nodded but didn't answer. What was there to say? They pulled up in front of the school, grey brick and painfully ordinary, and Ava hesitated before getting out. Kids were already gathering at the front doors, chatting, laughing, glued to their phones. None of them had any idea what it felt like to be her. She finally stepped out and walked toward the building like she was heading into battle. Her best friend, Layla, spotted her in the hallway between first and second period. Ava, Layla, rushed over, arms wide, her curly brown hair bouncing as she moved. "Oh my God, where have you been? I texted you like 40 times. Ava forced a tight smile. Phone was off. Layla pulled her into a hug before stepping back and looking her over. "You look tired. Are you okay?" That question was becoming a weapon. It always sounded kind, but to Ava it just twisted the knife. "Yeah," she lied. "Just been dealing with stuff." Layla didn't press, but Ava could see the concern in her eyes. They walked to class together, making small talk about teachers and annoying classmates, but Ava barely heard any of it. Every word felt distant, like it was happening to someone else. By lunch, the whispers had started. She caught them around. Corners, girls in the bathroom, boys laughing near the vending machines, her name tossed around like a rumor with legs. "I heard she was in the hospital for something serious." "Nah, someone told me she OD'd." "Bro, I think she's pregnant. Swear on God. My cousin saw her leaving Planned Parenthood last month." Ava gritted her teeth and kept walking. She sat alone at lunch, something she hadn't done since freshman year. She picked at her food, stomach churning with anxiety. The secret wasn't going to stay a secret for long. That night, she sat on the porch at Linda's house, staring out into the street while crickets chirped in the distance. She had her hoodie pulled tight around her, knees to her chest. Linda joined her with 2 mugs of tea and didn't say a word at first, just sat beside her in the quiet. "You want to talk about school?" she asked eventually. Ava shook her head. "No point, they're going to figure it out." "You mean the pregnancy?" Ava didn't respond, but that was answer enough. Linda took a sip of tea. "You don't owe anyone anything, Ava. But I know how heavy secrets can get. They don't shrink over time, they just settle into your bones." Ava blinked at her, startled by how true that felt. "Do you think she'll ever come back?" she asked suddenly. Linda didn't ask who she was. After a pause, she said, "I think sometimes people leave because they're too scared to face what staying would mean." "She didn't even hug me goodbye," Ava said, her voice cracking. "She just walked out." "I'm sorry," Linda whispered. Ava swallowed hard and looked away, hiding the tears building behind her eyes. "I keep thinking maybe she'll call, say it was a mistake, that she didn't mean it." "I know," Linda said softly, "and maybe she will. But whether she does or doesn't, you're still here, still standing." That night, Ava didn't cry herself to sleep. She lay in bed staring at the ceiling, her hands resting on her stomach, feeling the faintest flutter of something she wasn't sure was movement or just nerves. She was still here, still standing. But for how long? It happened on a Wednesday, the kind of grey, sleepy day where everything feels like it's moving in slow motion. Ava had made it through her first 2 classes without issue. She kept her hoodie pulled down low, hair tied back, eyes on the floor. No one asked her anything directly, but she could feel it, the shift. People looked at her longer, whispered when she passed by. Teachers gave her these loaded glances like they knew something they weren't supposed to. By lunch, the hallway had turned into a minefield. She was halfway to her locker when she heard the laugh, sharp, loud, intentional. "Yo, Ava," a voice called out from behind her. She froze. It was Drew Harrison, big mouth, bigger ego, the kind of guy who lived to ruin someone else's day. He smirked as he walked past, phone in hand. "You need a seat, or you good standing? I mean, you're eating for 2 now, right?" A few kids nearby laughed, the ugly kind of laugh that made Ava's stomach twist. Her face burned as she clutched her binder tighter and turned the corner without saying a word. Layla was waiting at her locker. The look on her face was somewhere between worry and confusion. "Okay," she said, stepping in front of Ava. "What the hell is going on?" Ava stared at her. Her throat felt tight. "What do you mean?" "Don't give me that," Layla snapped. "People are talking, Ava. They're saying you're pregnant, that your mum dumped you at the hospital and you're in foster care now. Please tell me that's not true." Ava didn't speak. "Seriously?" Layla's voice cracked. "You didn't think you could tell me something like that? I'm your best friend." Ava's eyes burned. "I didn't want you to look at me like this. I'm not looking at you like anything. I'm trying to understand." A few students slowed down as they walked by, clearly eavesdropping. Ava yanked her locker open and shoved her books inside, just to keep her hands from shaking. I didn't tell anyone because it's humiliating, she hissed. My mom left me like literally if he walked out of a hospital room and never came back. Then CPS shows up, and now I live with some lady who writes inspirational notes and pretends it's all okay. How the hell do you expect me to explain that over text? Layla looked stunned, like someone had just punched her in the stomach. She opened her mouth to respond, but Ava didn't wait to hear it. She slammed her locker shut and walked away. She didn't eat lunch that day. Just sat outside on the edge of the courtyard, knees pulled up, staring at the dead leaves collecting in the corners of the school's stone walls. Her hoodie was too thin for the wind, but she didn't care. The cold helped her think. She didn't. Blame Layla, not really. But the truth had become too big now, and it wasn't going to stay buried. That evening, Linda sat across from her at the dinner table. The table was small, pushed up against the kitchen wall with a flickering candle that smelled like pumpkin spice burning in the center. I got a call from your school, Linda said gently. Ava didn't look up. They said there's been talk, some bullying, some concern about how you're coping. Ava pushed the mashed potatoes around her plate with her fork. I'm fine. You don't look fine. Ava slammed her fork down. I said I'm fine. Linda didn't flinch. She just sat there watching her with that steady gaze that didn't judge, just waited. I didn't ask for this, Ava muttered. I didn't ask to be a charity case, or a foster kid, or the girl with the drama. I just wanted to be normal. Linda leaned forward slightly. You didn't choose what happened, but you do get to choose how you respond. Ava hated how calm she was, hated how much she wanted to believe those words. That night she lay in bed staring at the ceiling again, just like she had every night for the past week. Her phone buzzed beside her, a text from Layla. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have pushed you like that. Ava stared at it for a long time before responding. It's okay, I didn't mean to blow up either. There was a pause, then another message. I'm here if you ever want to talk. For real. She didn't reply. Not yet. Instead, she sat up, pulled her hoodie off and stood in front of the mirror. For the first time in days, she really looked at herself. Her face was thinner, eyes darker. But there was a strength in her reflection she didn't expect. She ran her hands slowly over her belly. Still no bump, still just her. But not really. Not anymore. It was the vibration that woke her, soft, almost apologetic, like the phone didn't even want to interrupt her sleep. Ava rolled over groggy and blinked at the screen. 1:12 a.m., unknown number. She stared at it. Her first instinct was to ignore it, but something tugged at her gut, a strange kind of dread. She opened the message with a reluctant swipe. Hey, I know I'm the last person you want to hear from, but I heard, and I'm sorry, really. Her heart stalled. There was no name, no signature, just a number. But she knew exactly who it was. Ethan, the boy who said he loved her, the one who whispered promises in the back seat of his dad's car, who ghosted the moment she told him about the test, who vanished like none of it had ever happened. And now here he was, texting her like his silence hadn't cracked her into pieces. She locked her phone without replying. The next morning, she couldn't focus at all. Every time she reached into her bag, her fingers grazed her phone and it felt like a burn. She didn't tell Linda, didn't tell Layla either. Some things were too raw to say out loud. She made it through school in a daze. Nobody said anything. Cruel that day, but the looks were worse. Stares, pity, whispers behind cupped hands. At one point during math, she glanced up and caught Layla watching her. Not judging, just waiting. Ava almost cracked right then and there, but instead, she looked away. By the time she got back to Linda's, her phone had 4 more messages from Ethan. I should have stayed. I know that. I panicked. I was stupid. I want to talk, please. Can we meet? Ava sat on the edge of the bed, phone in hand, thumb hovering over the keyboard. She typed a reply, deleted it, typed again, erased again. Finally, she wrote, "What do you even want from me?" He answered in seconds. "To hear you, to face it, I owe you that much." That was the thing. He did owe her. So damn much. She could still remember the moment she told him, sitting on a bench behind the gym, hands shaking, voice small. She thought he'd step up. He didn't. He said he needed time to think. And that was the last she heard from him. Until now. She stared at the message, chewing her lip until she tasted blood. After dinner, she told Linda. "I got a message," she said, eyes low. "From the baby's father." Linda didn't blink. "What did he say?" "That he's sorry, that he wants to talk." "Do you want to talk?" Ava hesitated. "I don't know. Part of me does. Just to say everything I never got to say, to make him feel as small as I did when he disappeared." Linda nodded. Closure is a powerful thing, but it's not always what we expect. Sometimes it just reopens the wound. Ava thought about that all night. The next day, after school, she agreed to meet him. They chose a public place, a coffee shop across town near the park. Linda insisted on dropping her off and waiting nearby. She didn't ask questions, but her eyes said everything. Be careful. Ava sat in the farthest booth, sipping a hot chocolate she didn't want. Her hands were sweaty. Her legs wouldn't. Stop bouncing under the table. And then he walked in. Ethan looked the same, but smaller somehow. Not physically, but in the way someone seems after they've fallen off the pedestal you built for them. His once perfect hair was messy, his eyes tired. He didn't look like a boy with all the answers anymore. He saw her and froze for a second. Then came over. "Hey," he said quietly. Ava didn't say anything, she just stared at him. He sat down across from her awkwardly, fidgeted with the sleeves of his hoodie. "I didn't know how to say anything," he started. "Back then. I mean, I was scared." She snorted. "You think I wasn't?" He flinched. I know I messed up. I left you alone. I don't even have an excuse." "Good," she said coldly, "because there isn't one." He looked down. "I heard from someone at school that you're with a foster family, that your mom—" Ava crossed her arms. She left when the doctor confirmed it. Didn't even let the door hit her. Ethan looked up, his mouth opening, then closing again. "Look," he said, "I don't know what to say to make any of this right, but I'm here now, if you want me to be." Ava stared at him for a long time. Her throat was dry. "You don't get to come back just because it's convenient now," she said. "This isn't a movie. There's no dramatic reunion where we cry and everything's forgiven. You left me, Ethan, when I needed you the most." He nodded, eyes glassy. "I know, and I'm sorry. I just needed you to know that." For a moment, neither of them spoke. The clink of dishes and espresso machines filled the silence between them. Then Ava stood up. "I'm not doing this for you. I'm doing this for me, so I can finally stop carrying your silence like it's mine." She left without looking back. Outside, Linda was waiting in the car. Ava got in, closed the door, and let out a breath that felt like it had been trapped for weeks. "How'd it go?" Linda asked gently. Ava stared out the window, eyes burning, but not with sadness. Exactly how it needed to. For weeks, Ava had pushed the question to the back of her mind, buried it under schoolwork. The chaos of being ditched, and the daily grind of pretending she was okay. But after the meeting with Ethan, something inside her shifted. She was finally starting to accept the truth. This wasn't just a thing that happened to her anymore. It was happening because of her. It was part of her life now. And soon it would demand a decision, one that wouldn't have a rewind button. The first person she talked to was Linda. They were folding laundry together in the living room. Ava slowly pairing socks, while Linda folded towels into tight little squares. It was peaceful, the kind of calm that made Ava feel like maybe, just maybe, life could feel steady again. "Can I ask you something?" Ava said quietly. Linda didn't look up. "Anything." "What if... I don't want to keep it." Linda paused, a towel half folded in her hands. Then she finished the fold, set it down, and turned to face her. "Then you don't have to," she said gently. Ava stared at her. "You're not going to judge me?" "I'm not here to judge you, Ava. I'm here to support you." It felt unreal. For the first time, someone had said those words without adding conditions, without attaching disappointment or guilt. "I've just been thinking about it," Ava said slowly. "I don't even know how to be a kid right now. How am I supposed to raise one?" Linda gave a soft sigh. You're not alone in feeling that. A lot of girls go through this same moment, staring down a road they didn't choose, trying to figure out what comes next. Ava nodded. I don't even know where to start. Linda stood and walked over to the side drawer, pulling out a folder. She placed it gently in front of Ava. What's this? Information, Linda said. About options. If you decide to terminate, there's a process. If you decide to keep the pregnancy but choose adoption, there's another. If you decide to raise the baby, there's support for that too. Ava opened the folder slowly, flipping through papers and pamphlets. Everything from clinics to parenting programs to stories from other teens. I thought I'd feel more certain once I saw it all laid out, she whispered. No one ever does, Linda said. You'll feel scared no matter what. But the right kind of scared. That's the kind that means you're thinking. A few days passed before Ava mentioned it to Layla. They were sitting on the bleachers behind the school after hours, both of them drinking grape soda from plastic bottles. Layla had forgiven her, or maybe just missed her too much to stay mad. Either way, they were trying again, building back what had cracked between them. So, Layla said slowly, you thinking about what you want to do? Ava hesitated. Then she nodded. Yeah, I'm leaning toward not keeping it. Layla blinked. Like abortion? Ava nodded again, slower this time. Layla was quiet for a long time, too long. Finally she muttered, That's heavy. I know. I mean, I get it, she added quickly. I didn't think you'd actually say it out loud. Ava raised an eyebrow. Why not? I don't know. You're like strong. You seem like the type who'd push through it no matter how hard. Keeping it doesn't make me stronger, Ava said quietly. Sometimes letting go is harder. Layla looked away, chewing on the edge of her bottle cap. I just think, if it were me, I don't think I could live with the guilt. Ava felt her chest tighten. You think I'll feel guilty? No, I didn't mean it like that. Ava stood up, brushing the crumbs off her jeans. I thought you of all people would understand. I do. Do you? Ava shot back. Because it sounds a lot like you're saying I'm doing something wrong. Layla stood up too, eyes wide. Ava, I'm just saying it's complicated. Everything's complicated. My mom left me, my boyfriend disappeared. I had to grow up in 3 weeks while everyone else is worried about prom dresses. You don't get to tell me what I should feel guilty about. Silence dropped between them, sharp and painful. Layla finally muttered, I'm sorry, I really am. Ava looked away. It's fine. I'm just tired. That night, Ava lay awake, the folder from Linda sitting on her nightstand. She reached over and opened it again. This time she focused on one page, the clinic closest to their neighborhood. It outlined the steps, the requirements, the counseling, the recovery. And then she saw it, a line near the bottom. Parental consent may be required for minors under 17. Her heart dropped. Diane was still her legal guardian. Ava shot upright in bed. Her brain started spinning. Could Linda sign something? Could she get emancipated? Would she need to go to court? She got up, grabbed her phone, and texted Rachel and her caseworker right away. Hey, I need to ask something important. Can we talk tomorrow? Rachel responded quickly. Of course. I'll come by first thing. Ava put the phone down and stared at the ceiling again. She could already feel the pressure rising. This wasn't going to be simple. The decision might be hers, but the power to act on it? That still belonged to the woman who walked out the door without looking back. Rachel arrived at Linda's house early, just after breakfast. She looked tired, not in the way someone loses sleep, but in the way people carry the weight of two. Many broken systems and not enough help. She smiled when she saw Ava, though, the kind of smile that tried to soften hard news. They sat at the kitchen table while Linda busied herself in the other room, giving them space. You said you had something important to ask, Rachel prompted, flipping open her folder. Ava took a breath. I want to terminate the pregnancy. Rachel didn't react, not visibly, just gave a slow nod and waited. I've thought about it a lot, Ava continued. I've read the stuff Linda gave me. I've talked to people. I'm not ready to raise a kid. And I don't want to carry it to term just to hand it off either. I don't want to be a walking guilt trip for the next 7 months. Rachel leaned back in her chair. You're allowed to feel that way. You're allowed to make that choice. So I can do it? Ava asked, eyes searching. Like, legally? Rachel exhaled slowly. Here's the thing. You're 16. That puts you in a tricky spot. In this state, you still need parental consent. Ava felt her stomach twist. But my mom, she left. I know, Rachel said. Which is why this gets complicated. She's still your legal guardian until the court removes that right. And unfortunately, that process takes time. Weeks, maybe even months. I don't have months, Ava snapped. Rachel nodded sympathetically. I understand. But unless your mom is legally declared unfit, or her parental rights are terminated, the clinic can't proceed. Ava's hands curled into fists under the table. So what? I'm just stuck. Not stuck, Rachel said gently. But, delayed, we can file a petition to transfer temporary medical decision-making to the state. I'll start that process immediately, but I want to prepare you for something. What? There's a chance, Rachel said slowly, that your mother could contest it. Ava blinked, stunned. Why would she care now? She walked out. Sometimes, Rachel said, parents show up when they think they're losing control, especially when something forces them into the spotlight. Ava swallowed hard. So she might come back? Just to stop me? She might. That night, Ava couldn't sleep. Her thoughts spun like a cyclone, every memory of Diane piling up in her head like sharp glass. Her mother's silence, her cold eyes, the way she stood up and walked out of that hospital room without even touching her. And now, the idea that she might swoop back in, not out of love, not out of regret, but just to have the last word. That made Ava want to scream. She stared at her ceiling again. So many nights she had stared at this ceiling thinking, when does it get easier? The next day, it didn't. Diane called. Linda was the one who answered. Ava was in the living room, half watching TV when she heard Linda's voice change. Go quiet, careful. Then she peeked around the corner and said softly, It's your mom, she wants to speak to you. Ava froze. The air left her lungs. She didn't know what made her stand, what made her take the phone. But she did. Hello? Ava. Her voice sharp, too clean, the kind of voice that came from someone who'd rehearsed this in the mirror. You finally remembered you have a daughter, Ava muttered. I've been dealing with a lot, Diane said quickly. The hospital, the shock. It wasn't fair how things happened. Ava wanted to throw the phone across the room. You left me. I panicked, Diane snapped. You think you're the only one who felt betrayed? That shut Ava up. I gave you everything, her mother continued, and you threw it away. You got pregnant like it was nothing. I didn't know how to process it. So you ran, Ava said coldly. Diane was silent. I'm not calling to fight, she said finally. I'm calling because Rachel contacted me. There it was. I know what you're trying to do, Diane added. And I won't let you. Ava's hands clenched. It's not your decision anymore. You're 16, Diane snapped. It's absolutely my decision until the court says otherwise. Ava stood up, phone pressed so tightly. To her ear she could hear her own heartbeat through it. You don't get to show up just to ruin what I need to survive, she hissed. You walked out, remember? You left me in a goddamn hospital gown with a nurse holding my hand because you wouldn't. I did what I had to do, Diane shouted. I had to protect my life too. And what about mine? Ava shouted back. You think I wanted this? You think this is some teenage dream? The silence that followed was the loudest thing Ava had ever heard. Then Diane said quietly, I want custody back. I'll file for it. If you try to terminate, I'll block it. Ava's jaw locked. Then I'll go to court, she said. I'll tell them everything. You wouldn't. You don't know what I'll do anymore. She hung up. And for the first time in her life, she didn't cry after a fight with her mother. She felt powerful, even if just for a second. The court date was set. Rachel worked fast, faster than Ava thought was possible. She filed for emergency medical, decision-making rights on behalf of the state, citing parental abandonment, emotional instability, and the risk of harm due to delayed care. Diane was notified. She responded with her usual venom. "She's my daughter," she said in her legal statement. "She's 16. She's not capable of making life-altering medical decisions alone." But Ava had already decided she wasn't going to let her mother decide anything ever again. On the morning of the hearing, Ava dressed in silence. Linda helped her pull her hair back neatly, handed her a granola bar and squeezed her shoulder. "No matter what happens," Linda said, "you walk in there with your head up. You tell the truth. Let them feel it." The courtroom was cold and sterile, not much different from the hospital room where it all began. Diane sat across the room, her expression unreadable. She wore her nicest coat, painted her lips bright red. She looked like someone trying to win a campaign. Ava didn't bother dressing up. She wore jeans, a simple sweater, and carried the folder Linda gave her. The one with all the information, her evidence, her truth. The judge was a middle-aged woman with tired eyes and a no-nonsense voice. She asked questions fast, facts, history, context. Rachel spoke first, laying everything out in calm, clear terms. Then it was Diane's turn. "She's scared," Diane said, her voice syrupy. "She's angry. She doesn't know what she's doing. Terminating a pregnancy? That's something you can't take back. She'll regret it. I just want to protect her." Ava stood slowly when the judge motioned her forward. Her hands didn't shake. "Miss Carter," the judge said, "you understand what this proceeding is about?" "Yes, Your Honor." "You understand the risks involved with the decision you're asking for?" "Yes." "And you're asking the court to allow you to move forward without parental consent?" "Yes." The judge looked down at her notes. "Why?" Ava stepped closer to the mic. "Because my mother stopped protecting me the day she walked out of that hospital." The words hit the room like a thunderclap. "She left me in a gown, bleeding and terrified. She ignored calls. CPS had to track her down. I wasn't even enough for her to yell at. She just left. And now, suddenly, I matter again." "No. That's not love. That's control." Diane shifted uncomfortably in her seat, but Ava didn't look at her. She wasn't talking to her anymore. "I'm the one who wakes up every day with this inside me. I'm the one who has to deal with the stares, the whispers, the shame. Not her. I've lived every second of this alone. I've done the research. I've been to counseling, I've talked to doctors, I know what I'm doing. And I'm not doing it for revenge, I'm doing it because I want my life back." She paused. "I don't hate the baby, but I can't be a mother right now. I don't have the tools. I don't even have a mother." The room went still. "I'm not asking for the right to kill anything, I'm asking for the right to choose who I become." The judge looked up at her for a long moment, then nodded slowly and asked her to take her seat. 30 minutes later, the decision was read. Emergency medical rights were granted to the state. Ava could proceed. Diane stormed out before the papers were even signed. Ava didn't watch her leave this time. 2 weeks later, Linda drove her to the clinic. The ride was silent but not awkward. Ava was calm, not happy, not sad, just steady. She held Linda's hand in the waiting room. When the nurse called her name, she stood, took a breath, and walked through the doors. The procedure was done by afternoon. That night, Ava lay in bed with a heating pad pressed against her stomach. Linda made soup and brought it in with a soft blanket and a glass of water. "You okay?" she asked. Ava nodded. "Yeah, I think I actually am." The pain was there, but it wasn't sharp. It was the kind of ache that reminded you something was healing. A few days later, she met up with Layla again. They sat at the park, watching little kids run around on the playground. "You mad I didn't?" "Tell you?" Ava asked. Layla shook her head. "No, I think I just didn't know how to be there for you." "You're here now." Layla smiled. "You still got your hoodie?" Ava grinned. "Hell yeah." Spring crept in quietly, that year, the kind of spring that doesn't need to announce itself. Ava walked through it like someone who had already seen the worst of winter, and survived. Her mum didn't call again. No letters, no texts. But Ava stopped waiting. She was still standing. And this time, she wasn't just surviving. She was choosing her future, her voice, herself.